So installment sale agreement is where you as a buyer, you pay off your property directly to your seller in more than one installment over a period longer than a year.
Okay. All right. So there we go. So those are one of the things that you note too. So, I mean, one of the things that we note, which is the reason why people enter into these kind of agreements, is that you'll find that, someone is self-employed, and they find it a bit hard to get financing from a financial institution. So they have the money, but, it's just a bit difficult to access it via a financial institution. So what they do is they enter into this agreement, which then assists them to pay the seller directly. And what would you say that people need to look out for, in this type of agreements?
So I like to refer to installment sale agreements as a bit of a slightly different kind of animal.
Yeah.
So,
it is.
You have to put in extra clauses, provide for extra things that perhaps your ordinary run-of-the-mill sale agreement will not provide for. So I think if our viewers intend on entering into such a sale agreement, best would be to consult with one of us, and our information will be available in this video, and then we could help you put a sale agreement together, which just provides for everything. One of the things that is quite typical to an installment sale agreement is that it must be recorded in the deeds office.
Okay.
So what would you say is a recordal in the deeds office, Pam?
Look, so just like how we register certain agreements or certain contracts in the deeds office, it's the same thing. Noting it is basically saying that it's been noted at the deeds office, and the deeds office recognizes that there is such an agreement that's been entered into.
And that is so important, because that then provides the necessary protection for specifically your purchaser. Because now, as and when the purchaser pays off the property installments, it means that if the seller should try to go and sell the property off to someone else in the meantime, the deeds office will say, stop, there is already another sale agreement in place, and that this transfer cannot proceed.
And like Gretchen said, we understand that this is obviously might be a lot to absorb, but that's the reason why we're here. We're here to tell you that we're very clear about what needs to go into that into an installment sale agreement, what you need to look out for when you buy, what you need to look out for when you purchase. One of the things that comes off the top of my head right now is the transfer duty payable, right? And whenever you buy a property, it's such a costly exercise that every penny counts. So, for instance, the transfer duty that is payable must be paid, so that you don't incur penalties. You need to make sure that it's paid within 6 months.
Yes. So even though you may be paying off the property as a buyer over a period of 10 years, you still need to pay that transfer duty within 6 months from the date that you've signed the agreement. Otherwise, like Pamela said, you'll pay the penalties. Other things that a buyer also must remember is that they will be liable for the fees to record that contract in the deeds office. Another thing, for example, is that buyers, they often then take the occupation of the property as well, then the possession, which is basically taking on the risk of the property upon yourself. So you as the buyer then will be liable for payment of rates and taxes, levies, water and electricity consumption. So it works slightly different then eventually when we transfer the property, because then you as the buyer, where traditionally a seller would be liable for payment of rates and levy clearance figures.
The common practice is that.
Now you as a buyer would be liable for those kinds of expenses. You as the buyer would have to get the electrical compliance certificate that time when you've paid it off, and the transfer must happen in your name. So just understand that where certain fees traditionally would be for your account, or for the seller's account, would now be for your account as a buyer.
To look out for, if should the seller enter into such an agreement, then it's pivotal that they also approach and the property that they're selling is bonded.
Yes.
Then it's important that that seller goes and speaks to their banker before going into that, so that the bank can advise whether the access facility that they have will still be, accessible.
Right.
So that's a guideline on its own. And so there's so many little things and nitty-gritty things that you need to pay attention to.